Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my 5-star TBR wrap-up for the last 5-star predictions and my new predictions. So I only filmed the other one of these like maybe a few months ago, maybe like beginning of summer, I don't know. And I did say that I thought I was gonna get through this fairly quickly because I had plans to read all of these books, either for book club or for the Hugo, so I did do that. This was not necessarily a disappointing round of picks, but I definitely thought I was going to like most of these things a little bit more than I did, with one exception. So yeah, I didn't necessarily pick these well this time, but it's also, I don't think it's my fault. Not that it's no one's fault. Anyway, let's get into the wrap up of my new predictions. First is a book that I just finished up, and that is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This is the first book in a adult fantasy trilogy that follows a main character who has bone shard magic. She's the Emperor's daughter, and they use bone shard magic to kind of like hold back this potential like bad magic that used to exist. It's kind of unclear, but she has lost her memories, and so she is not able to like take on the sort of heirdom, I guess. So she's competing with her like foster sibling that her father adopted a few years ago. So they're competing against one another. In addition to that, even though the synopsis says that there's only one character, there's actually multiple POVs. So we have another main character, and I'll talk about this more in a review, and then 3 other side character POVs. So this one I ended up giving 3.5 stars. This was our Bibliothecary seasonal book pick. So every season we vote on a book, they vote on a book that we want to read, and then we read this together on Discord, and then I have a live show at the end too. So I'm not going to go into depth talking about this individually, because if you want more information about this book, that's all on Patreon. But I believe for me, the multiple POVs kind of bogged it down a little bit. There's a few POVs that I didn't really feel were necessary, and especially because the synopsis implies that we're just following one character, and then all of a sudden we're following 5, was just kind of a lot. The second half of the book picked up more. The first half I wasn't liking a ton. I don't think I would have disliked it enough to DNF, but it just was like, I don't know, it was kind of slow feeling. I wasn't really connecting to the story. The second half definitely picked up and got very interesting. And there's some elements that I really liked here, such as like magical animal companions and things that I'm intrigued enough about that I probably will continue, but I need to get the second book soon before I kind of like lose interest, I think. But 3.5, 3 stars-ish. Then my second guess was Light from Common Stars by Rika Aoki. This I've talked about at length because I read it for the Hugos. I've done a review. This I gave 3.5 stars to. Again, it just had a lot of different elements because it's a sci-fi fantasy mix that it just didn't feel like it really tackled everything as completely as I would have wanted it to, and just had like so many themes that it was trying to explore at once, and like not enough time for them. So I liked this but didn't love it. 3.5. Then the one I did guess fairly accurately was The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is the last book in the companion series, The Wayfarers. I've loved every single book in this series. I'm not surprised I love this one. 5 out of 5 stars. I just love her cozy sci-fi stories. This story followed all aliens. I love an alien, and it just had everything that I liked. So I'm not shocked about this one. This was the one on the list that I like could pretty much guarantee I was gonna love. Then, because I do say that my 5-star predictions are usually 4 and 5-star predictions because I don't tend to rate many books 5 stars, so this one still succeeded, but this book also wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be either. And that is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. Again, talk about this one as well. This is much more a historical fiction than it even is a fantasy. The fantasy elements in here, and really what kept it from being 5 stars, was that the fantasy elements were so light and could have completely been removed from the story and not changed a thing. For me, I'm like, how is that really even a fantasy story? Like, and I've heard now since then that it was actually written as a historical fiction, and her publisher said, or like her agent said, to put some fantasy elements in there to make it genre. So it really wasn't even supposed to be super fantasy, but I still really liked it. The writing is really good. The story is really good. I'll be continuing with the series. It's a 4 out of 5 stars. I do have a review for this one as well. And lastly, we have The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, which is the first book in the Inheritance trilogy. This was her first book. This was her debut. It's a adult fantasy story, and we have a full discussion of this book over on the House Salt Book Club, the live show, which I will link on the screen, where we talk about this. This was good in that I can see sort of how her writing has evolved, because I've worked backward. I've read her more recent stuff first and then worked back. But there was a lot of things in here that just made me like, bleh. A lot more romance heavy than I was expecting from her other books, where she has very, very light romance. The way that she handled the gods and the gods being siblings but also together was like It was a weird reminder that she kept doing. And there were just a few things, like it felt slow at times, but the end was really promising. The rest of the books in the series are all companions to each other and take place over like various points in time and in different sort of parts of this world. So I'm gonna continue with it. It was a 3.5, 3.75. Not the strongest of her books that I've read, but I wasn't really expecting it to be. So it almost got to that 4-star mark, but not quite. Now, we have my next round of predictions, and I think I said this for this round, so maybe my judgment is bad, but all of these books, I will be stunned if they're less than 4 stars. Or like, honestly, even 4.5. Also, a number of these authors are authors that I've read before, so like, kind of like with the Becky Chambers situation, I already sort of know I love their work. First prediction is Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reid. The first book, I believe, or like maybe the second book, but my first 5-star read of this year was her first book, The Wolf and the Wisdman, and I loved it, and I think I'm gonna like all of their books pretty much. This is a gothic retelling of a fairy tale, very dark apparently, there's lots of triggers in here, but no triggers that bother me, and I just think I'm gonna love this. Very dark and twisty. I love dark and twisty, I love dark nature shit. I think it'll be good for me. Then we have The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. The fact that I haven't already read this book is a crime against me. I love Tasha Suri's other series, the books of Amba. You guys know both of those were, I believe, 5 stars, or like at least the second book was 4.5. And this is part of the Sapphic trifecta, so we have a Sapphic relationship. It's the first in a adult fantasy series, and it follows 2 women. One is a princess, and then one had to like give up her powers and her birthright. She's a maidservant, but obviously like there's more there. And it's Tasha Suri. I'm pretty convinced I'm gonna love it. Then we have If We Were Villains by ML Rio. This has been everywhere, especially on Book Talk, but this is a dark academia, sort of gothic standalone story, and I think I'm gonna be really into it. I don't know, this is my one like sort of wild card, I feel like maybe. I will be shocked if I don't love this. Then we have A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is a retelling sort of Dracula from the perspective of Dracula's brides, and a very sort of like good for her vengeance against their abuser story. Gothic. Vampires. Again, I'm predicting that I'm gonna love it. And lastly, we have The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. I really liked the first book. I recently reread it like a couple of months ago and liked it even more on reread. So this is the second book in the series. It's another sort of like dark academia, adult fantasy, featuring a magical school that's basically trying to kill the students. And this is their like sort of graduation where they have to fight their way out. And yeah, we have a grumpy sunshine dynamic with the main character being the grumpy one, and a lot of just like twists and turns and stuff. So I think I'll love this. It's Naomi Novik. I don't think I've ever rated anything from her below like maybe like a 3.75, but I will be stunned if this is lower than a 4. So that is it for my TBR predictions and my wrap up from last time. This could also be a quick one, quick turnaround, because a few of these I do, like 3 of them at least, I want to read for spooky season, but I think the one that might hold me up is Jasmine Throne, because I'm not sure when I'll have time to read like a big chunky book like that, but we'll see. So maybe you might get one more predictions before the end of the year, but I don't know. I feel like this could be like an early next year thing where I wrap everything up, but let me know what you think of my choices. Let me know what you think of some of the books that I predicted from last time. Thank you all for watching. I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.